2 years ago was the beginning of the Loa journey. My first initial video was the dynamics of female nature of Eve and Lilith, a philosophy of Lilith being the first wife and Eve the second being told through Jewish and Mesopotamian folklore bound to religion. Lilith's name and character may come from a Mesopotamian demon, Lilu, which translates to night monster and appears in the book of Isaiah and the Babylonian Talmud, ancient incantation, and the book called Alphabet of Ben Sira. Lilith, created from dust like Adam, refusing to submit to him, asserting her equality, leaves Adam by fleeing to the Red Sea and becoming a succubus, a child-murdering monster, and the breeder of evil spirits. A woman named Tara Indiana spoke on this deeply, stating she is a spawn from her, a clip I once used in my original video. It was the most honest interview I've ever watched years ago of a woman who explains why her role in the sex industry is more than just about absolute pleasure, but the truest nature of humanity.
Yes, I'm Jewish.
So is this like a Jewish part of the Jewish establishment or Jewish culture?
Are you talking about S&M or Lilith?
Lilith and the S&M thing and all that.
No, Lilith is part of Jewish mysticism. S&M, is something that exists in about, I would say, 8 to 11% of the population across the board are oriented this way.
Really? So is this lifestyle well known in the Jewish culture because of Lilith?
I don't think most people would be sophisticated enough to make that leap. But yeah, I think it's probably one of the reasons that generally in Jewish culture is matriarchal.
And this is happening because men and women are in a fallen state. That's why.
Yes, it's not natural for men to dominate women. That's the fallen state.
It's not natural for women to dominate men.
No, it's the other way. The punishment from God, right?
Right.
Is that Adam is going to dominate Eve. That's the fallen state.
What the fallen state is once Eve disobeyed her husband, because prior to that, when she obeyed her husband, listened to her husband, things were fine. The order was there. But once Eve
Lilith was actually the one that tempted Eve. You know the snake in the tree?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, the snake.
And you see the snake? And have you seen the image? It's like a snake that's half snake, half woman holding an apple.
I may have seen that around.
Right. That's Lilith.
Oh.
So Lilith
is a snake.
Lilith was the first woman.
Her vision of traditional gender roles is believed to be backwards. Men are ought to be submissive, as the women of Lilith are the leaders. She understands that the women of Eve are more submissive and doesn't consider it to be any degrading position, but yet finds that the falling state of humanity is the patriarchy, as she finds it that men need to be punished all while they enjoy the dominance inflicted.
Do you have kids?
No, I didn't have kids.
And why not?
Well, it just didn't come together. I wanted to make sure if I had kids that I was, financially secure enough and that I could provide them with the kind of, I'm actually more traditional than you'd think. Like I would want to have a husband and have a traditional family. And it just didn't come together in time for me.
She mentioned she didn't have children because she was trying to prepare her life financially first before ever considering to have them. Sounds very familiar as into what we see today with modern women, postponing children so they can reach a financial goal that they seek.
Do you love men?
I do.
You don't have any resentment toward men at all?
I love men.
And why?
They're great. I mean, I guess I love men because they're simple, They're not as complicated as women. Their needs are very simple. What else do I love about men? They're handy. They can do things. They have physical strength. They can be used for manual labor, as a beast of burden or a workhorse. Men are very useful.
The woman sees men as just workhorses, as tools, as something to be used. That's why she takes pleasure in her position. It's very, very familiar to just the ideology that modern women have today, that they always expect man to have something for them, not necessarily give them something. Modern women don't ever consider that they're supposed to have value to bring forth for a man because men are just tools to them, workhorses. And no matter what type of positions that they are in, they can always be looked at as workhorses for the women, not necessarily for their careers, not necessarily for society, but just for women and women in general.
Because there's no way that you can respect men and treat them that way. Even if they are weak, you can't treat them that way.
I don't really see slaves as weak. I think it takes a lot of courage and strength to submit to a woman, specifically because of all the social stigma put on them by people like you.
When you say social stigma, what do you mean?
Well, we live in a culture where it's not socially acceptable for men to be submissive to women. That stigma, so that makes them feel shameful.
Right, because
wrong. Of people like you.
It's wrong to be that way. It's evil for a man to submit to a woman, and especially to that, down to that level. They shouldn't do it, period.
Well, where in the Bible does it say that?
It's not in the woman's nature to lead. Women don't know how to lead.
No, Eve is, if you're a descendant of Eve, then you're going to have a submissive nature. But if you're a descendant of Lilith, you're going to have a dominant nature. And some of us are a little bit of both. And the way to reach, inner peace is to reconcile your Eve and your Lilith in a healthy way.
I don't find it being a coincidence that women of this mindset find their way into the sex industry. The only way you can truly break a man down is by using his desires, fantasies, and their known sex dependence against them. She expresses that she teaches other women about dominating men, putting men back in their original place where she believes women to hold the most power. The idea of the temptress, seductive, beautiful, sexually explicit, and dominating, is the image of the sexual attraction to men in her eyes, because she has clients who expect such from her. Her background of having a matriarchal marriage, along with her matriarchal childhood, causes it to be such, and she wore it proud through her Jewish religion. A text of Lilith she believes is removed from modern Christianity to push forth the patriarchal design that forms the traditional marriages, which has long been broken. But her reality will never change because her own makeup of herself is as a descendant of a known demon, the night monster. The concept this woman has, and the same way Lilith went about her rebel, was through the sexual nature of men. And even though the woman considers herself to love men, as they are simple creatures, the placement of dominance from her is a dungeon, a sexual experience, a fantasy paid to her as money is power, and surrendering such from men is lost of it. Her sight of men is not a dominant role, but only a fantasy that submissive women desire. The men she has met over 3 decades shows her that they are weak. Men lack self-control. Men prefer female domination and are embarrassed by society to be anything other than slaves. Her perception can't be broken because of her ancestry, her own marriage, and her career.
You put them in a cock cage and you lock them up. Chastity.
Be locked away in a cage. They're not supposed to let a woman beat them.
Well, if they can't control themselves, why wouldn't you put them in a cage? They clearly can't control themselves. They're constantly masturbating and doing naughty things, and women have to correct them.
So can descendants of Lilith truly love men if their ideology of female supremacy is their rule? If the design of woman was to attract men and bear his children, what have been the benefit for man without the rule of his counterpart? Was men's sexual attraction to women the only way of considering a bond with them if all women in general ought to be placed above men? Is this the curse for man? That women will forever be desirable and enticing to men without ever having full submission of them? If men didn't have the natural desire to conquer women and preferred loathsome, will women stop seeking power over them? What power will women have over the disciplined man? That is the fact unspoken in the idea of female supremacy. I find this woman's interview a true way of diving into the modern woman's psyche, an explanation and study of why our society today has shifted into the damnation of humanity, the gender war that seems unsolvable and at a point of no return. But when you understand the enemy of man, you understand the actions that will take place. And gender, known as the force of nature in the hierarchy within a man that sides with creation, stands against these night monsters, the enemies of mankind's destiny that was envisioned in the most fundamental book that ever existed, that brought upon many other religions to construct society as a whole. This force of nature given to men can be deviant or protective, and if the enemy is the ones they were deemed to protect, what lies for the future of society? There's many women that have been indoctrinated to believe this theory without ever knowing any of the historical context, and the demands of men to be wallet slaves is only due to the fact that it was possible. What we have today that our ancestors didn't have then is the major X factor at play, the internet, where we can finally document history like never before and learn about all we need to know of male and female nature. The winners always wrote history, but now we can even learn from the losers. Take note of everything when it comes to the dynamics of female nature, because there is very valuable information that can path a man's way back into his light and superiority that was designed for him. The order that is rightly given to govern the world, handed down by his very own creator. But what do y'all think? Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell to alert you for all my new content. Support the channel with links in the description. And as always, I thank you all for watching.
Do you like being dominated?
Usually not, but sometimes, you need to relax and unwind, and you get tired of making all the decisions, and you want someone else to be in charge for a little while.
That's right.